Hello and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on e-commerce for tourism businesses. A lot of you will know me by now, but just in case, I'm Patricia Kingston from Tourism NI, so delighted to have you all joining us today. We're also joined this morning by Michelle Connolly from Profile Tree, who will be delivering this exciting new topic this morning, which we selected based on feedback from your previous sessions. So we are listening to what you guys are looking for. Michelle will also be available to answer some of your live questions at the end, so do stick around for that and get your questions into the chat all throughout this morning's session. This time we're also very happy to be able to offer a limited number of short one-to-one calls with Michelle for any industry registered for this session. So I'll be explaining a little bit more about that later on. This session is being delivered as part of the ongoing Tourism Enterprise Development, that's a TED programme. You know, we've been really designing the program this year to help the industry survive and recover from what's really been a crazy year in 2020. So far, we've delivered quite a lot of sessions on finance and business support. And then as we move towards 2021, we're going to continue to develop a range of topics to help in the recovery journey for you guys in the industry. We also would keep encouraging you to look at packages of funding and supports that are available, and we've lots of really useful information available and details of our webinars on tourismni.com and covid19.tourismni.com. So again, I'll remind you a bit more about that later on. So I hope you find the session really useful this morning, and I'll be back at the end to ask Michelle your questions. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce Michelle Connolly for the main presentation. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Patricia, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for taking the time out to come onto the webinar this morning. Do feel free to ask as many questions as you like in the chat, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation if that's all right. So I'll make a start. We've got quite a lot to get through today, but hopefully it'll be useful and give you something to think about over the Christmas holidays. So today we're going to talk about the different ways to sell online. We're going to think about the different e-commerce platforms that there are out there, a little bit about the user journey, what you need to really consider to make sure that you are really converting that sale and pushing people towards making that payment and buying those tickets, booking those tours and everything else. And then also a little bit about optimizing for search engine optimization to make sure that people are actually being able to find your shop or your e-commerce online and being able to make that payment and pay. So let's make a start and think about e-commerce in general. I mean, obviously e-commerce has been around for a long time, but in the current situation, e-commerce has obviously spiked. It has went through the roof, and really everybody is now buying, paying, looking online, even more so than they were before. It was already obviously a very, very big thing before the pandemic, but it really, businesses have had to adapt and move online. And, you know, just looking at these stats, really, really interesting from smartinsights.com, e-commerce actually accounted for nearly a third of all retail in May 2020. And you can see that there was a little drop again, obviously, as we came out of lockdown, but again, that's spiking up. And what is the thing with this is people's mindset are changing. So if you think about COVID, people buying online already before, this big massive spike of people buying online because of COVID, but people getting used to it and people enjoying it and people seeing the ease of it. People are starting to get to that mindset as well that maybe they will use e-commerce a little bit more in the future. So it really, really, if you haven't got e-commerce on your website, or you're not using e-commerce on social media, or you haven't got an outlet for people to be able to pay online or buy online, it is something that, as you can see from the stats, we really, really need to be thinking about and thinking about how that can work for our business. Another just little stat there around the different categories that people are buying services online. So you can see that services has went up 216%. And if you filter down through that, and I know the slides will be available afterwards, so you can have a bit of time just to enjoy those and look through those stats, you'll see even the likes of events and entertainment has actually went up. So everything is going up where the e-commerce is developing and growing. So it is a really, really good time to start thinking about it and thinking about how it can be implemented to your business. So we're going to have a quick look at some key considerations, and I'll just have a glass of water. So if you're starting to out on your e-commerce journey and you think, right, okay, look, now is the time, I really want to get set up, I really need to start taking online payments or allowing people to be able to interact with me online. Some of the key considerations that you're going to think about before you even decide about what route you're going to choose. So the first thing you're going to be thinking about is, who are you selling to? Who are your audience? You can't afford to sell to everyone. You know, you can't afford to be on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and on a website and everywhere 100% of the time. So you need to really think about, where are your best platforms? Where are your audience? Where you should be targeting. No, it's not to say that you shouldn't have a presence on those other platforms, but it is to say, look, you should really have one or two really clear focused platforms that really work for you, that your audience are using, and that are going to be a really good target that you can put a lot of energy and information into. So where are your customers? And then you're really thinking about, in general terms, and you'll know a lot of the answers to these questions because you're interacting with customers day in, day out. You're interacting with travel, with people coming internationally, you're interacting with domestic and local. You want to think about those different segments as well. How do they normally book with you? Is it they pick up the phone? Do you have an element of online at the minute where maybe it is they contact you through your website and then you give them a call back? How are they booking? How are they making their decisions, which is very, very important? How are they buying and how are they paying? So is it that you're taking payments over the phone? Is it that you do have an element of a third-party booking system or something on your website you're able to take payments? And is it the best system for you and your customers? And I think you have to think about that balance as well. It is that balance of, is it a good experience for your customers, but also is it a good experience for you? Because you essentially have to run that booking system, you have to run that payment system in the back end, and if it's very fiddly and very complicated, it's not going to be very good for you as a business owner to be fiddling around with that. So do think about both sides of the coin. What you'll also be wanting to think about is then moving into that decision phase. So once you've kind of thought, right, I know how my customers pay, I know how my customers would like to pay, I know how they buy, I know how they would like to buy. Now we're talking about how you start to move into that e-commerce realm. So if you're not offering e-commerce at the minute, you're going to think about, what are you going to set up and how are you going to set up? So you're kind of deciding between setting up your own e-commerce platform or using existing platforms that are already out there. And you'll need to make that decision based on your business, based on functionality, and based on your customers. So we're going to explore a few different avenues of different ways to sell online, or different platforms. So we'll have a quick touch on website builders. We'll look at a few e-commerce platforms. We're going to look at social selling. We're going to look at if you were just using your own website, and we're going to look at those third-party websites or those OTAs as well. So all of these will be viable options for everybody, but again, it will depend on your personal choice. It will depend on functionality, ease of use, and what you really want to get out of it, and where you are, I suppose, on your e-commerce journey. So let's take a dive in and have a wee look at some of these different platforms that are out there. So we're going to talk first of all about website builders, and hopefully a lot of you will be familiar with these website builders. So you have the likes of Wix and Squarespace. Now, a little bit of history around these. These website builders were initially built as blog websites, so really more for information and as I say, a blog style website. But obviously, as technology changed and people's buying habits changed, and with the introduction of e-commerce, they then decided that they would take up their functionality up a level and start to add that element of e-commerce in. So you've got the likes of Wix and Squarespace now that, yes, started out as a blog, but now have those integrations to be able to add that e-commerce element or that payment element there. So you can build a website from scratch on Wix or Squarespace and then integrate your e-commerce in there. And they are very good options in that they're pretty simple to build. there are loads of tutorials out there, and they're not massively expensive. So it's not a massive monthly fee that you're paying to have this website run. You know, Wix is 180 million websites out there, and Squarespace are users, and Squarespace is 1.4 million. So they are really well tested. Squarespace is probably slightly behind Wix, and there is a lot of functionality with them, and are quite easy to build. So I will talk a little bit about the pros and cons of why you might use one of these or why you may not. So the pros of using these sorts of builders are they are incredibly easy to use. They work on a drag and drop system where you basically have a template and you decide what elements you want in that template. So if you can imagine it, it's a bit like building a house. You have the foundation and the structure that you can't change, and then you decorate it how you want it. And that's basically how these platforms work. You just drag and drop those elements within it. Wix has a really great range of designs. So again, you will choose a template, a design template, and then you will just work within that, change maybe the color scheme, change different elements a little bit in terms of functionality, and it does work almost like a drag and drop. And then they're all on one platform, so everything is built in. So you have your e-commerce and everything is all built in. You don't have to start integrating stuff or going to third parties. That can all be in the one place. So it is a really good viable option for somebody who is starting out, doesn't have a massive budget, doesn't have a massive technical knowledge, and you know, these can be a really good option. Although they do come obviously with their cons, as does everything. Once you select the template, you can only change it manually, so you have to fiddle around with it. And again, the template, you're quite restricted in what you can change. Back to what I'm saying about the foundation of the house, the foundation will stay. So if you want to change functionality that's not included in that template, it can get a wee bit tricky. Can be harder to use or slower once you start to get big. So it's good if you've a small website with, you know, 10 to 20 pages. Once you start getting over 30 pages, it can get very clunky and quite slow to use. So they're not really suitable for those large or more complex stores. So if you were going to be selling loads of different services or loads of different tours or loads of different products, they're probably not the best option. And they do tend to be quite product focused. So you know, the templates and the designs maybe aren't as don't lend themselves as well for the more service style offering. But again, they are something that you can consider and have a look into and see if it's something that may work for you in terms of, as I say, functionality, price point, and getting started. What I would say is having something like this and being able to take those payments and being able to serve your customers is better than having nothing. So, you know, it is a good starting point, and you can always transition and grow as your business online grows. So we're going to look at e-commerce platforms as well, and I've chosen Shopify because it's one of the most popular. There are other ones out there, but as I was saying to Patricia just before we started, if I was to start talking about e-commerce platforms, we could be here for 24 or 48 hours. So I'm going to just talk about Shopify, and it's slightly different. Where I talked about the fact that Wix and Squarespace were set up initially as a blog and then transitioned into e-commerce, Shopify is the complete opposite. It was set up initially as a shop, completely for e-commerce. That was its pure sole reason, and then it has transitioned into being able to offer additional features like blogs and informational pieces around it. So it is a sole e-commerce focus. Again, it's set up very, very similar excuse me, to Wix and Squarespace in that it is a builder. Again, you can build it with very little technical knowledge, depending on how complex your features are, and obviously depending on how complex your functionality is. You can build these yourselves, and there are loads and loads of tutorials out there. Again, it works on just a subscription model where you pay a monthly fee, and it can actually get quite expensive if you go into the advanced Shopify. But again, it just depends on the functionality and what you need out of it. Again, it works on templates, so you choose your template and then you build and drag and drop within that. But it does also give you functionality to have things like stock inventory as well if you were working with a product based, business. What is really, really good about it as well is actually the marketing aspect, the social media integrations. It allows you to integrate your social media into it very, very easily, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. It's very, very easy, and it's to market and promote. So again, Shopify, as I say, is set up really for that selling, and everything is focused on that selling, that user journey, that ease of use, that communicating with your customers. So it is a really, really good platform, you know, for really focusing in on that. So key features are things like it allows you to sell everywhere. So you've got your one platform, but it will allow you to have your online store, which is obviously your Shopify website. It will allow you to actually have a point of sale. So for example, say for you were out at an artisan market or a Christmas craft fair or something like that, and you were an artisan food producer, you might be able to avail of, you know, I'm saying craft fairs and food fairs. I know we don't have any at the minute, but in the future, you can actually have a point of sale and be able to take payments through there. You can have a buy button that you can drop into other places like the likes of Facebook and other social networks. And then you've also got your sales channels as well. So it does allow you functionality to be able to integrate into other platforms. Back to, and I will talk about Instagram, Facebook shops just slightly later on, but again, it directly integrates into those. So when people are clicking buy now, they'll be automatically taken to your Shopify shop or platform and be able to use it there. So there are loads of integrations there that allow you to, as I say, sell everywhere. And then you've got the sort of theme features. So again, when you set up your Shopify platform, what you'll be doing is looking at different themes. Different themes will have different levels of functionality. And again, it depends on what service you're offering or what your business is in terms of what functionality you need. So if you're a hotel or a B&B or accommodation provider, you're going to need slightly different functionality to a tourism event, which is also going to need slightly different information or functionality to a tour operator, which is also going to need separate functionality to somebody who sells, you know, tourism products. So it is really drilling down into those different themes to see what is going to suit you in terms of functionality and what you need that theme to be able to do. And it is a really critical thing that you need to decide, because back to what I'm saying, once you choose the theme, you're kind of stuck with those functions within it. Sorry, I have a very dry throat this morning. So I've pulled up a theme there. For example, this is a theme that would be perfect for events. So you can see it's designed for musicians and publishers. It has a dates and events section. You can have a small catalog in there. You've got your slide out menu, and you can customize all those different things within it. But it is about really drilling down and saying, look, what features do I need? And what features does this theme offer me? And there are loads out there around tourism and booking and travel. And so you just need to really drill down into those to see what's going to be good for you. And I've just put up some of those features there, or some of those themes there. And I know it's quite small, you can't really see it, but you can see that first image is actually a Shopify website for tours, for tour guiding. So that is actually a website already set up that people are using to book different tours through. And then below that are different themes. So you can see there's one to do with booking different destinations. There's one that's to do with booking tour guides or tours, one that's actually about booking hotels. So there, again, there's lots of different themes there that you can choose and drop in. And this was just an example. The Four Seasons in Hong Kong is actually, they have a Shopify site that they are selling their pastries and meals to go, spa gifts and everything else. So you can pop on to the Four Seasons Hong Kong and have a look at that, and you can see that it's a really slick platform and it works really, really well. So just things to consider if you are thinking about going down the Shopify route. Simplicity does come at a cost, so sometimes, back to what I'm saying, choosing those themes very wisely. You do have that restriction that sometimes you can't change things within the themes, so be careful. You might want to say, look, I would really love it to be able to do this, and it can't. But again, you have to weigh that balance of, yes, it's actually easy to use and easy to build, and your budget as well. You don't have full control of your e-commerce business as Shopify is running every aspect of it. So again, back to that, if you want to change things or change around layouts and structure, you have to go with the Shopify model. And then fees for third-party payment gateways can be more expensive than other platforms, and sometimes Shopify tries to push all users through its own payment systems. So payment systems is something that you need to be able to consider as well. And the beauty with Shopify, yes, this is a con in terms of not a con, in terms of pros and cons. Shopify will try to obviously lead you into its own payment gateways, but there are other payment gateways that you can integrate in, so it is just to be mindful of that. So the next thing we're going to talk about are website plugins. So this would be for people who possibly already have a website that they are already using, but maybe isn't e-commerce yet. So you may be, for example, a tour guide that is offering tours through your website, but you maybe just have a contact us and people pick up the phone or they email in and then you get back to them and you don't have an element of e-commerce on there. So we're going to talk about website plugins, and we're going to focus on WordPress just because again, we could be here all day, but WordPress is probably 40% of the internet at the minute. So we're going to look at a website plugin called WooCommerce that will actually then be able to pull in that element of e-commerce into an existing website. So WooCommerce, again, a bit like what we were talking with Shopify, in that it is specifically built for payment. It's specifically built for taking payments and e-commerce. And again, the beauty with WooCommerce as a plugin in terms of WordPress is you literally add it to your website and it's up and running straight away, and then you customize it, and there are loads of different ways of customizing it. And what I mean by that is then integrating it into your Facebook, just like what I was talking about with Shopify, and being able to have lots of different functionality there. And again, you have a lot more freedom with something like WooCommerce in terms of functionality, because it basically works on a very basic system in that you have your e-commerce and then you integrate other functions that you want within that. So you might have, right, okay, I've got my e-commerce for just taking payment. Look, and unlayered on top of that, I want to have a booking system that people can actually physically book a day and time. Layered on top of that, I want to have a calendar in the back end that I can actually see where my bookings are and where they're going. And you can just build those layers up and start to build an almost custom style booking system or e-commerce payment system that's going to really work for your business. So you have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the freedom there around functionality. And if you do have a WordPress website, this is something that is very easy to do. Again, in terms of plugin, and I am going to talk again a little bit about the pros and the cons. Website plugins, for example, obviously with WordPress, very, very well known and will integrate really, really easily. Generally, they're free to start off with, WooCommerce is, but as you start to, what I'm talking about, layer those different functionalities in, it can start to build up because you pay for some of those plugins. Will be paid models that you'll have to pay for. It is one of the biggest e-commerce providers in the world. So again, reputationally, it works very well. It's been tried and tested. And it, for you as a user in terms of a business, it will work very well, and it has all the functionality you need, and it has been tried and tested. It's been around for a while, and it does have a really good support network around it. I have to say, if there's any ever issues with WooCommerce and I've had to contact their support, they have been really, really helpful and really proactive. So you do have that wee element in the background as well. Cons, again, some themes are poor depending on what you choose and what functionality you need. And then the responsibility does lie on you for the hosting of that, because obviously you're hosting your website, also for the security of it. And what I mean by that is if your website hosting is not secure or you haven't been updating that, you need to make sure that you are updating the theme and your plugins regularly to make sure that they are staying secure. And then obviously you're responsible for upgrades as well. So if changes come along, which they do a lot in WordPress or WooCommerce or the plugins, new features are added or it's been upgraded, you're responsible for updating that. So there is a wee bit more work for you as a business owner in terms of keeping that updated, but you have to weigh that out with the functionality that you're able to do. And it can be quite expensive, as I say, once you start to build on those extensions. And they're not all paid for, some are free. It can start to get a little bit more expensive. So it just depends on exactly the position that you're in, where you are in your e-commerce journey, and what sort of level of freedom you want to have as well. So we're going to move on to, because I am aware of the time, social selling. Now, social selling is something that has been massively pushed forward because of COVID. Facebook and Instagram shop was rushed through around June time, allowing people to actually set up a shop on Facebook. Now, you will have to have a business page already to be able to do that. But again, this is another viable option. Even if you have a website or you have a Shopify or you have Wix, or you just have a basic website on there, you can set up your shop and on Facebook, you can take payment through Facebook, or you can actually direct people to your website to take payment. So it is a really good option. You can put all your products and everything in there, and it looks really, really well. It looks really, really professional. The only thing I would say about Facebook shop is it is very product led, a bit like Wix and Squarespace. It can be very, very product led. So if you're not a very product facing business, where you have something specifically concrete to sell, it can get a little bit trickier, but it's not undoable. You do also have options on social selling for things like a book now button. So if you're accommodation or a tour guide or offering something where people need to book for an event, you can have a book now button, which again will redirect directly to your booking system or your website or whatever you're using to take those bookings. And then you've also got Facebook events. So you can actually set up events on Facebook as well and take payment through there. So there are loads of options around that social selling platform. And again, something that is really, really coming in very, very quickly. And the beauty with Facebook and Instagram selling is that it is already mobile first. So it makes the journey really easy for people to buy. Don't discount Google Maps as well, especially if you're accommodation or hospitality or hotel. You can obviously get that set up to take bookings, and also you can list events on there as well. So it is really important that you just look at all those different options. What I would say as well is that you may want to have an element of the likes of Facebook or Instagram, as well as your booking or payments or e-commerce platform. Whether that be your website or a Shopify website or Wix or Squarespace, you might want to work them in parallel and cast that net out to really capture that wider audience. So it is definitely something to look into. The beauty with the likes of Facebook or Instagram shop is it's really easy to set up, and Facebook have amazing tutorials in being able to do it. So it isn't something that you need massive technical information or massive technical ability to be able to do, and so it is something definitely worth looking into. And I wanted to talk a little bit about third-party platforms as well. So you've got all the different ways that I've went through on I suppose social selling online, But there are options as well, like third-party platforms that we can link out to. So this could be if you already have a website, back to what I was saying about the WooCommerce. You already have a website, but you can't really take payment through it yet. You just basically have a contact us, or you get people to ring you or whatever. And something like Fair Harbor is a really, really, really good third-party platform that you can link out to. Very focused on the likes of tours, experiences, activities. Has a really, really good system for that, for taking that booking, but also for taking that payment. And will again have loads of different levels of functionality and different things that you can choose in terms of actually having a full calendar set up in the back end, so you can see visually all your bookings, your payments, who's going where, what they're doing, and you can have all of that in the back end. So this one is a really, really nice system. And again, there are loads out there. It will really depend on what you want or need to be able to do. But again, this one works really well, and all the third-party platforms will work on, they will take a fee, and some of them will a monthly fee, some of them will be a percentage of the booking. Again, it depends on the platform that you choose, but this will integrate seamlessly again into most websites and will just work and feel as if it's on your website, but it will have all the functionality that you need. So you don't really have much to do with it. You just basically integrate it in and you work away and it's all set up for you. So it is a really, really good one to have a look at. The beauty with this as well, it will also integrate into all the booking platforms. So it will integrate in with booking.com and Expedia and Google and TripAdvisor as well. So it is something to look into if you just want to get something up and running quickly, and you don't mind paying, you know, a percentage of your fees to it, and you don't want to have too much management of it. Something like this can work really, really well. I'm going to mention things like TicketSolve as well. So slightly different. The last one I talked about was probably for sort of tour operators and activity based. This would be more, TicketSolve was actually set up with the arts in mind, but very good for any sort of event style thing where you have to give out tickets or sell online that way. And so something like TicketSolve, again, a really good integration that will manage everything for you in terms of tickets and automated and sending all the information out to your customers, and you don't have to worry about those bookings and where they're coming from. But again, you give control over to the platform and they will take a fee. So it just depends on your personal preference, your level of involvement, and I suppose the functionality that you need. And look, if there are people on here that are toying with the idea of all these different integrations and different ideas, and they're not 100% sure, as Patricia did mention, you know, there is the opportunity to maybe catch up for a 15 or 20-minute call just to see what exact functionality you need, and I would be able to make more specific recommendations based on that, because as I say, I'm talking top level here around these are things that you can do, but it will really depend on you as a business and what you need in terms of functionality and what your clients and customers need. So the key considerations that you really need to think about before you make that decision of what platform you're going to use is, are you already online? If so, where? And do you already have a website? Because that will really influence what route you want to go down with all those platforms that we've just discussed. What I would say as well, these are some things that you might want to do before you actually do choose your technology, whether you decide to go for Shopify or Wix or a third party or Facebook, or think about these considerations. So do ask for recommendations. You know, you'll have loads of people within your space that you work with, collaborate with, ask for recommendations, ask people what they're using, and they're going to give you a really, really good insight as to how it works for their business. So they might say, look, you know, we really love that it does this, this, and this, but we wish it would have done that, and had we have known that, we would have went with something else. So do take that feedback on that into consideration. Do check out forums and Facebook groups, again, within your niche, and that's really, really important to think about in your niche and what people are using it for. You could ask your website company or your developer, and they will give you really good advice in terms of the functionality of it in terms of what you need to be able to do. And then you look at genuine review sites. And why I'm saying genuine is a lot of the review sites are obviously paid to do reviews on these different softwares. But things like Capterra and G2, yes, will be still paid, but seem to be slightly more, I suppose, robust in the review that they give. And they will really give you a breakdown of, again, what people are really saying about these different softwares. I would also really think about cost. And what I mean by cost is not the upfront cost. And sometimes this is where people get caught very, very easily with these platforms, is that they look at the setup cost and they think, oh, that's really good and it's really good, reasonable, and it's well within my budget. But think about the ongoing maintenance. Excuse me. We recently had a client come to us with a big Magento site and had went down the route of the setup cost and the getting the website built and everything, but didn't realize that actually the ongoing maintenance was going to be up to £1,000 a month, which was massive. So really, really, you do need to think about not just the setup cost, but is there any ongoing maintenance, and really drill down, especially on those that are those third-party websites. Ask those questions like, do your fees increase if, I have more users, those sorts of things, because, sometimes they're kind of not outwardly open in terms of finding that information. So I would make sure you ask those questions and really think about the features you need. We can get very, very carried away by seeing a solution and we think, oh, this is perfect. It can do this, it can do that, it can book things, it can take payments, it can do. Ask yourself, do you actually need all those features? Because sometimes you can get waylaid to something that has all these features, but they're not actually features that you need, and you could be paying more money or working with a system that isn't maybe perfect for you because you've got blindsided by the fact that it can do all this stuff. Unless you need to do all the stuff, I would be really thinking about what features are the core features that you need, and that's how you're going to help make that decision. Think about ease of use as well for yourself. Not only for your customers, you want the customers to be able to use it easily, but also yourself in the back end. You don't want something that's going to be really, really technically difficult or something that you're dreading having to open every time you have to work with it. And how easy is it to leave or change? Can you walk away? Are you tied into a contract? What happens with all your data? Can you export your data at the end? If you've been taking customer data through there, especially if it's a third party, can you actually leave easily? And I've put a little star here to say everyone will have their own preference, because it will depend on what you need and what you need as a business, but what your visitors need or your clients need when they're booking. So just some considerations to think about before you go down the route of choosing one of these platforms. Now, I do want to talk a little bit, and I'm aware of time, I do want to talk about user journey, because it's not all just about the platform. Once you've set your platform up and you can take in those payments, you really, really actually need to think about those user journeys, because that's the most important thing. Ultimately, what we want to do is guide our users on a journey to make that sale, to make that booking, buy that product. We want to make it as seamless and as easy for them. And I've got a little diagram there, because I think what happens is people get an e-commerce platform and they go, right, it's perfect. I've got my e-commerce platform now. People will come on, they'll choose what they want to buy, they'll pay, and I will deliver it. That is not how life works, as you well know. Reality is they go on, they're looking at all the different products, they're trying to make a decision, they go off to another website while someone is, has put a review on there. They take a phone call, they're checking their emails, they might put something in the basket, they might get waylaid, but people are not on this very seamless route of they just go in the different steps. So we need to guide them and really make sure that we're getting people to that payment section. And we're going to talk about 4 or 5 different, I suppose, segments within that user journey. So we're going to think about awareness. So first of all, do people know that you're around and that you are offering e-commerce and that they can pay online? We're going to talk about the consideration when people are actually deciding to buy, making that decision. We're going to talk about the purchase, the retention, and the advocacy as well. So I'm going to put another little diagram up just to help us talk us through that. So you've got that awareness piece at the beginning where you are making people aware that your business exists, that your tours exist, that your hotel exists, that your artisan food exists, that your experience exists, that your activity exists. And that's really important. So that's all your information around your PR. Are you doing any print? Is it word of mouth? Do you run online ads? Are you doing email campaigns? Are you running PPC? Have you got your social media set up? All of that's really, really important because you want to be telling people, hey, we're here, this is what we're offering, and you can buy it online. The second part is your consideration, and that's where people are starting to delve a little bit more into getting the information that they need to make that buying decision. So here's where you're talking about your social media ads, your reviews. So this is your research part, and you know, people are researching. I would say, I think a stat come out recently that 70% of people's research is done online before they even decide to buy or make that booking. So it's really, really important that you are there in that consideration part. So have you got ads? Have you got reviews? Do you have a blog that talks about all those products and those services and those experiences? Do you have anything in the media? Are you sending out direct emails? So are you at the forefront of when people are making that buying decision? Are you there? Do they know about you? Do they know what you do? Do they have enough detail about what you do in order to start thinking, yeah, I might actually want to pay for that. I might actually want to buy that. So that's the research phase. We then move on to the purchase phase where we've got them at a customer at a level where they know about us, they know a bit more about our product, and they're thinking, yeah, that sounds good. I would quite like to buy that, or I'd like to book that, or I'd like to stay there, or I'd like to experience that. This is when they're going to come to our e-commerce section, and this is where we need this to be as simple as possible. We need to give them an option that allows them to go straight to that payment. We're going to talk a little bit about clicks. So if you think about and go have a look at other people's e-commerce platforms, it's actually really, really interesting. When you get them to your website, you want them to be able to purchase in as few clicks as possible. And what I mean by that is you don't want them to have to click into the product. So they go to the product page and then they close the product and then it opens another page and then they have to click something else and then you have to add it to basket and then they have to go to the basket. You want to try and reduce that as much as possible. So you want to remove all those barriers to sale or all those distractions that people might go off and do something else. So your website and that process to take that payment is going to be really, really important. And then you're going to have that retention phase. So once you've got them paying once, can you retain, or can you have an element of retention there where they will come back? Can you remarket to them? Can you say to them, look, you know, I see you bought this last year. Would you like to go again? And that's where your CRM and your data capture comes in, where you can actually start to remarket those people that have already bought and have been happy with what they've bought. Can you keep a hold of those people? Can you pull them into being lifetime clients? And then you've got your advocacy, where you actually want them to have had such a brilliant experience with you that not only the payment experience and then the actual experience, they will then go out and recommend you to other people. And again, they will be talking about their social networks. You will maybe be giving a newsletter out to them that they will pass on to other people, and you really want people to start referring you and sharing about your business. But we need to be mindful of all these different stages in that customer journey in order to capture them at the right opportunity and at the right times within their decision-making process. If you are not there when they're considering, if you're not there at awareness, it doesn't matter how wonderful your e-commerce platform is. If you are not there in their decision-making process and they're not aware of you and what you do, you can have the best platform in the world, but if no one's coming to it, nobody's going to buy. So I want to talk a little bit as well about conversion rate optimization. So the average e-commerce conversion rate is 1 to 2%, and obviously that changes massively depending on the sector you're in, the time of year, the type of business, all of those different factors, but we're just talking about an average here. So we want to talk about how we can actually improve this. So how can you improve that conversion when people come to your platform with a mind to buy? How do we push them to making that payment through our e-commerce platform? So Google Analytics, really, really important to have this installed onto your platforms. You really want to delve into this to look at what pages are people visiting, where are they coming from? So where are your referral networks? Are people coming in from Facebook? Are they coming in from your Facebook shop? Are they coming in from your Book Now button? Are they coming in from organic search? Where are they coming from? And most importantly, where do they exit the website? Where do they exit if they're not buying? Is there a certain page on your website that they come to, like a service page or a product page or an experience page, and then they leave? Because that gives you a really good indication. So say, for example, you're offering an experience, you find in your analytics that people often get to that experience page, but they don't actually hit the Book Now button. Is there something wrong with that page? Is there enough information on there? Is there a barrier that's stopping people? Is your call to action high enough on that page that people know they can book? That will give you a really good insight into how you can adapt and change your website to really make sure that you are converting those sales. E-commerce analytics, again, if you're using the likes of Shopify or Facebook shop, you'll have insights in there that will actually give you e-commerce analytics. So Google Analytics is more about visitors and traffic. E-commerce analytics will actually give you, I suppose, a more detailed version of where do sales drop off, where do they not actually close, and that is something that's very, very powerful, because you can almost start to see what are the barriers to people converting, and what can I do as a business on my platform to remove those barriers to just make it a more seamless process. Check your product page and service page. Have you got high quality images on there? Do you have videos? Do you have key bullet points? Do you have all the information that people need in order to book? Because e-commerce is about, and actually interestingly enough, was talking to Patricia about this just before we started. It depends on your product, but if you think about a tour, and I am a person in Dublin and I want to book a tour, I want to go on and I want to be able to say, right, I know where the tour is going, there's some lovely images, that looks amazing, oh look, there's a little video, gives me an idea of what I'm going to experience on the tour, here are the key bullet points that tells me the price, the time, how long it is, what I need to bring, what I'm going to see, what I'm going to experience. I have all the information there that I need to book, and I book. If I don't have that information, very highly unlikely am I going to pick up the phone unless it's something I'm really, really, really passionate about. It's very unlikely I'm going to pick up the phone and say, hello, I saw your tour on there, but there's some questions, there's some things missing. You want to remove those barriers. If you can give all that information, you're still, sometimes you are going to get the phone call where people are going to ask for more information, and that's absolutely fine. But if you can try and make sure that you've given as much information there as possible, that you're actually, the person doesn't need to ask those questions, so you're removing those barriers. And then what is your guarantee? Do you have a guarantee? Is there a cancellation policy? Do people feel secure that if they book or they pay with you, that they're actually going to get a good service or a good experience? You'll need to look at your pricing, making sure that it's competitive, and do have a look at obviously other people in the market. And that's not to say that you underprice or anything like that. You have to have make sure your value is on your product or your service or your experience, but are you competitive in the market? It is also important. You might offer even a discount code, and this is a really, really nice way for getting data and grabbing information from people. So you might have, sign up for the newsletter, get 10% off your first purchase or 10% off your first tour. And again, it means then you're starting to get that information in around people that maybe haven't booked right at this moment in time, but that might in the future. Test your system. How many clicks does it take you to buy? And that's what I was talking about earlier. You do not, ultimately, if you look at the likes of Amazon, you go onto your product and you can buy now. That's 1 or 2 clicks. So if you think about how many clicks, you don't want people having to click and click and click and go into different screens and go everywhere, because they lose focus and you're just putting up more barriers to payment. You can also use something like cart abandonment software, and you'll probably see this with especially some of the big organizations, in that it's, say somebody puts an experience or a tour or a product into a basket and they decide that they're not going to buy, or they go off and get distracted. What this will do is we'll send them an email and say, we see that you left your wonderful Giant's Causeway experience in the basket. Don't forget to come back and purchase it later, or something like that. But it basically sends them a little reminder. Or it could be that we see that you left some stuff in your basket. You know, next time you visit us, here's 10% off. It is a really nice way of capturing people that you've almost got to make that purchase, but just didn't quite get there. This is a good way of reminding them. And you know, stats say that up to 60 to 80% of people will convert based on the back of getting an email saying, oh, did you mean to forget this in your basket type email. I would also highlight the security on my website or my booking platform, because obviously with fraud and everything else around it, it's really, really important that you're showing that you take that very seriously, and that you're using, you know, good payment gateways and things like that, so that you really do make sure that people feel secure and that they feel that you have a good reputation. And make your products easy to find and easy to buy. So back to those clicks and back to that information. You want people just to basically know everything that they need to be able to make that purchasing decision. And I'm going to stop talking in a minute. Tips to convert, a few more tips. So using a recognized payment option, back to that security and that reputation. So use something recognized that people immediately go, PayPal, yeah, that's fine, or Stripe, yeah, that's fine. Do you want to have a guest purchase, or do you want to have people signing up? Again, that will be personal preference. It may be that you need them to sign up because you need specific details depending on the service or the experience that you're offering. Or is it just a product and you don't need their data, and you can make it a little bit more seamless by just allowing a guest purchase? And then really, really important to have product or service reviews on your website, social proof, Google Maps profile with reviews, have your reviews on your Facebook page. Again, people will do all of that research. Back to what we were saying about that awareness and that consideration phase, they will have already done that research before they come to buy. So it's really, really important that you have that information to help them convert to sale. Mobile first, really, really important. Important for SEO, but also important for that user experience. Hospitality can actually be 70 to 75% mobile traffic, which means people are booking on their mobiles or tablets or mobile devices. So it's really important that you do optimize your e-commerce platform to be able to make sure that you're following the guidelines of that, and make sure that the experience is very easy on mobile. Also, and this is a really obvious one, but actually have your contact details there. Really easy to see and easy to use in case of questions, but also for reassurance. There's nothing worse, and some of the big websites do it now, that you have to delve into everywhere. I know they're doing it deliberately because they don't want you to contact them, but there's nothing worse than not being able to find that contact information if you do have a question. And if somebody genuinely really does want your product or service or experience, you want them to be able to feel that they can ask. Each page, I would say, to have one purpose. So really, really focus on that call to action. Back to if you have your information in your service page with all the information on there to buy, make sure you actually have that call to action on there to book now or buy or pay or contact us, whatever you want on there. It's really important to get those calls to action in, especially in e-commerce when we're talking about that user journey and trying to lead people down a path. We need to give them those little breadcrumbs, which are our calls to action, to make sure that they follow those breadcrumbs to make that payment at the end. and reinforce your key selling points. And you'll often see this done really, really well on some of the big booking OTA sites, where they'll say, look, this is the key selling points, this is what you're getting for your money, it's really, really good, and make sure that you reinforce that. And if you can, capture emails to add to your marketing opportunities. So, you may get people to sign up to make their booking or to buy their experience. You may have a newsletter on there. You may have that cart abandonment software where people put their email in. It just means that you can start to build up your CRM and then start to remarket to those people, give them discount codes and pull them back into you and your system and rebooking experiences, or to pass on that information to other people. So it is really, really important to have a look at that. My last slide, you'll be very happy to hear. We're going to very, very quickly touch on SEO. It's also really, really important that you optimize your products and your services for people to be able to find them as well. So back to that awareness and that consideration. So just think about, when you set up your e-commerce platform, think about branded terms versus generic terms. And what I mean by that is, people get very caught up in, so you've got Jim's taxi service that takes you on wonderful tours around Northern Ireland. People will tend to name every single page or article or product or service Jim's taxi service. Now the problem is, if I'm American, or I am from Dublin, or I am from Kent in England, I don't really know about Jim's taxi service yet. I may want to use it, and I may finally that would be what I want to use. I need to make sure that I am capturing what people are searching for. So try to get that balance between your brand and generic terms. It is important to get your brand in there as well, but try to balance that out. So instead of Jim's taxi tours, it could be taxi tours Northern Ireland, taxi tours Belfast, political tours Belfast, or whatever it is. You need to make sure that you have that balance of what people are searching for before they know about you and your brand. So be very, very careful of that. And make sure that you do give your products and your services those keyword-led titles. So what I'm saying is, those keywords, again, a little bit of reverse engineering. Think about the people who are searching. What would they type in if they didn't know about you, but they wanted to do your experience, or they were looking for an experience, and they were coming on holiday for a long weekend to Northern Ireland, and they're really activity-focused people? What would they be typing in? Would it be walking tours? Would it be activity? Would it be mountain biking? What would they be typing in? And they're the sort of titles that you're going to be putting on your products and your services in order to meet that criteria of them searching for it. Categories, again, you want to really be thinking about how you structure your products or your services. Is it well laid out on your e-commerce platform? Are those categories laid out well, and are they named properly in terms of those keywords? And then product descriptions or service descriptions. It doesn't have to just be products. Can you get a little bit more detail there than, and this is what generally people will do, is you'll get to a product or a service. And again, it depends on the product or service. I mean, if you have 1,000 products on your website, you're probably not going to be writing 1,000 words on each one. But what I'm thinking is, say, for example, an experience, a mountain biking experience. Can you do a few more than, here's a mountain? You'll usually find that it'll be a very small paragraph of 3 or 4 lines. Can you get a little bit more on there? Can you get at least 500, I would say? But if you could get more than 1,000, that would be amazing for SEO. Back to the reviews, really, really important. And I would say as well, really important that you have a sort of review strategy in process, that when people do buy from e-commerce, from your website or from your platform or wherever you're selling, it's really, really important that you have those reviews on there and ask people to give you the reviews as well. So keep that review structure going. And then also, again, media, images and video, really, really important. It's going to be very important for that time on site. Again, a key ranking factor in Google is that people are spending time on your site. It means that they're enjoying it, that the content is good. So if you can keep people on there, but also for that buyer journey as well, if people have all the imagery and the video and they've got all the information at their fingertips, they're going to be that buying decision is going to be much easier for them. So I'm going to stop talking now, because I know there are probably a few questions, and as I say, look, there's loads of platforms out there. There are loads of different functionality. There are loads of different options. And sometimes it is just a sounding board to actually chat, to someone and say, look, these are the 5 things I need to do. What would you recommend? And that is no problem. Do feel free to as I say, pop a wee email through to Patricia and we can have that conversation. Hopefully it's been useful. And I'm going to stop talking now and put up my question slide. Patricia, you're probably thinking yes, because my ears are nearly worn out.
No, not at all.
Hand over to you for questions.
So much really useful information there, Michelle, and I think, as you said yourself, you can't go into every bit of detail on every piece, because there's so much variation. So I think that this will be a great opportunity for some questions. If people have specific questions now, please do get them in the chat, and I'll try and ask as many to Michelle as possible. But we will, as Michelle mentioned, also be offering those one-to-one sessions. So it's just like a short phone call about your specific question with Michelle, and she'll be able to chat you through what might be the best option for you specifically, because it is so varied and it really depends on your business. Even, I know you mentioned, Michelle, businesses of the same, you can't just even say this whole sector use this exact thing, because it depends very much on the individual businesses. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is.
So
And there is so much functionality out there around those different platforms and what people need to be able to do. And one, even I'm thinking back even to the back end of the website, and the functionality around how you manage your business will be very different to the next person down the road that's taking that's doing the same thing essentially, but they will manage their business in a separate way and will maybe need different functionality in the back end. So it's balancing that up as well, what it looks like for your customers, but also what it looks like for you as the person using it. So it's really, really important. And some people sometimes have some really specific processes that they've always used that they want to make sure that that integrates in. And it's good just to have that discussion, because you don't want to leave out those important things in how you run your business. You want to make tweaks and changes around e-commerce, but you don't want to change your whole business model either. So it's having a solution that fits in with how you do business, and with a few tweaks and changes probably.
Yeah, absolutely, and getting the balance right. Just before we get stuck into all the questions here, I'm going to do a couple of very, very quick polls just to find how everybody found today's session. So it should pop up on the screen there shortly. The first question is just, how would you rate today's session? So that's in terms of content and relevance to your business, with 1 being not relevant at all, and with 5 being extremely relevant. So if you don't mind just picking a little number between 1 and 5 there, just one who's watching here today. Thanks so much. And the second one's just a very quick and easy yes and no question. So do you plan to take any action within your business as a direct result of what you've heard from Michelle here this morning? So that's just a yes or no. Great. Everyone's made their selection. Thank you so much. It just helps us ensure we're on the right track with everything, and then we can continue to develop and improve the program as we go forward. There's so much to take in there today, so I'm sure you're all still absorbing as well. And we will, as always, be issuing a short survey via email after today's session. So if you can take a minute or two to fill that in, let us know how you find today, but also that feedback form is a really useful opportunity for you guys to let us know what else you'd like to see in the future, what would be useful for you, so that we can weave that into the program going forward. So let's get stuck into a couple of questions. Michelle, we have a question here. Now this is about us. This is a specific question, and we might get a couple of those here today. So this is someone wondering, what is the best e-commerce and booking platform for someone who's an activity and tour provider? So there'd be multiple tours, different currencies, and they would need an easily managed calendar. Can you give any advice on that scenario?
Yeah, and actually back to what I was saying about the likes of Fur Harbour is a really, really good platform in terms of specifically for tour operators, experience providers, activity providers. I mean, again, it layers in terms of functionality and in terms of fees, depending on what you need around that, but it will allow all those functionalities there. So from the front end of how, you set up those tours and how they look, right through to, it may be that you just want to integrate, for example, the payment system and the booking system, but keep the front end of your website. You might want to do the whole thing. It will allow that different functionality, and it will again allow for those multi-currency payments, multi-tours, and it has a really lovely, actually really visual calendar system that can be integrated into the back end that works really, really well. And it's very visual, which I love. That it would be something that would sell it for me, is the fact that the calendar system's very, very visual in the back end, which means managing it and managing your tours and your bookings and everything and your activities for what people have paid for and booked is really, really seamless. But again, it just depends on what you need in terms of functionality, but it is one of the really good ones out there. But there are others that will do things that are similar. It just would, the good thing with the likes of Fur Harbor is it will actually have a demo version, so you can actually go and take a full demo and see how that works and how it actually will integrate into your business. A lot of them do also offer free trials. So again, I would actually be really making sure I did my research around that, in terms of the person asking those questions, that question seems to know what they want. So that's going to make their decision a little bit easier, because if they know what they want, they can literally look down a list of features and go, well, that doesn't have that, so that's no good for me. But something like Fur Harbor is quite good. And I suppose for it as well, the fees in it are not extortionate, which is good.
Yes, that always makes a difference, absolutely.
Yes.
There's somebody, Michelle, here wondering if LinkedIn has a payment or shop integration woven in now. I know you mentioned about Facebook and Instagram.
Now, I know for a fact that LinkedIn does integrate with Shopify, but probably you can't take the payment on LinkedIn, but it will integrate into your Shopify platform. But again, it will depend on the platform that you're using as to whether you can integrate the LinkedIn into it. But again, as I say, if that person even just sends through a wee email with what platform they're using, we can give them a little bit more advice on that. But there are integrations there. The likes of Zapier is a platform which has loads of different integrations, which will integrate with loads of different platforms and connect. It basically works as a little sort of mini connector. So you'll have it sit in the middle, and you'll have Shopify and you'll have LinkedIn, and it'll sit in the middle and help those talk to each other. So Zapier is a really good one if you're looking for integrations in terms of putting other platforms or social media or even functionality around different softwares. But yes, you definitely can integrate LinkedIn into your Shopify site, but again, it would be depending on what platform they were using that I'd need to get a wee bit more information on.
Okay, no worries. And someone's wondering here, Michelle, how important are blogs and how often would you need to post? I suppose whenever you said about having those kind of, how to increase your words, your descriptors, maybe blogs are a way to do that, are they?
Blogs are really, really, really important. And the reason why I'm saying really, really important is if you think for SEO, basically Google comes onto your website and it crawls over with its spiders and crawls over your website to find out what it's about. And the more information you have on your website, the more Google knows about you and what your business does. And the more it will say, right, okay, hold on, here's a website about Northern Ireland tours. It's got loads of information on it. If somebody's looking for Northern Ireland tours, I'm as Google, I'm going to recommend that, because actually it's got loads of information and I know exactly what it's about. So blogs are really, really important, because back to what you're saying, Patricia, there's only so much you can write about products and services without being ridiculous. You're not going to write 10,000 words, but blogs you can. Not that you're going to write a 10,000 word blog, but you know what I mean? You can have a blog where you post every week and you've got, a blog every week, and by the end of the month, you've got 10,000 words on there. If you're, doing blogs regularly, or by the end of the year, you've 10,000 words on there, whether it's one a month or whatever. But you're not going to be able to do that within, as much as I'm saying, pad out those services and those products. You're not going to be able to write infinitely, whereas a blog you can. And you can be filtering in those keywords all the time into the blog, and basically all you're doing is send to Google, like, hey, we're the expert in tours in Belfast, we're the expert in tours in Northern Ireland, we're the expert in walking tours Belfast, we're the expert in political tours Belfast, we're the expert in anything to do with Belfast, come to us. And those blogs can really allow you to highlight that, as long as you're very focused on your keywords and those search terms, and have a strategy around it. I would say blogs, for example, don't just go writing off blogs for the sake of writing them. Have a strategy and have a focus and have a target audience of what you want to tell people and who you want to capture and who you want to be reading it. And how often would you need to post? Again, I would be realistic with myself. I mean, as often as you can, obviously, but don't say, right, okay, I'm going to do a blog every week if it's going to be ownership, a real rope around your neck, and you're going to be saying, no, I'm not, putting it off, and then you don't do it, and then before you know it, you've never done a blog. Easier to set yourself a realistic standard and say, right, I'm going to do one a month, and actually sit down and do the one a month. And I would actually plan a schedule out of what I was going to write around my keywords as well. But ideally, you know, you'd be ideally at least 2 a month, I would be saying, ideally. But I know it's not always easy when you're trying to run a business as well.
That's it, best laid plans and all of that, and there's always something comes out of left field. But no, that sounds great. And I suppose one of the things I whenever I was listening to the presentation and sort of resonated with me was whenever you said about contact details being easy to see, because that can lose a sale. So in the one sense, you want to be able to book it there and then if you've got all the information that you need. But like I, for example, I suppose from a personal point of view, we have a dog, and when we're heading somewhere, we like to find opportunities to bring the dog. And sometimes it's not quite, you know, you're not quite sure if that's going to be okay, or maybe they say we are dog friendly, but you don't know whether that's only certain rooms or that's only certain activities or whatever. I certainly, but it's always late at night, so it's not even just a phone number, but a really clear email or way to contact. In it, you know, for me to just type a wee note and say, really excited, we'd really like to book this. Am I okay to bring the dog? And that someone comes back to me in a timely manner, that then I book it the next night. Because when they do reply, that triggers me to then complete the sale. I suppose like a personal anecdote, really, but that contact a contact email, I think, is particularly important, or a contact form, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's as simple as, back to what we're saying about those calls to action, as the book now or the contact us, and that can be just 2 buttons, and either, yeah, I'm booking, or actually I need a wee bit more information, but I'm nearly ready to book. And it's that little button where you just click on it, you fill in your details, you ask your question, and that's it. And as you say, somebody comes back to you in a timely manner. But again, it's so that people are not having to search around your site and go to the footer and look around and go, where's that contact? And I don't, you know, where's the email? And then you have to open an email. I'd actually have it as a button where you just click on it, takes you straight to the contact form, or opens up into an email directly. And again, it's all just about removing those barriers where people aren't going off and getting distracted by something else and then forgetting that they were about to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, everyone, for all your questions. If you do have any questions you haven't popped in yet, we still have a little bit of time, so do pop those in the chat. But I'll just remind everyone, as Michelle mentioned there a couple of times, we are really delighted that we're able to offer a limited number of short one-to-one calls with our experts across all the digital sessions this week, and today is no exception. So if you would like to have a chat with Michelle specifically about how to set up e-commerce on your particular business, or you've maybe tried something and you've hit a blocker and you just need to get over a hurdle, and Michelle hopefully could point you in the right direction, drop me an email at industry.development@tourismni.com, and I'll be happy to pass your details on to Michelle, and she can arrange a call with you at a time that suits you both. We do have a lot of people signed up for this week's session, so we can't guarantee that everyone will get a call back right away, but we'll do our best to accommodate as many of you as we possibly can. So just drop me a wee email there. Also, today's session is being recorded, and you'll be able to watch it again on our website. That's covid19.tourismni.com. If you head to our previous webinars tab, you'll find in the next day or so anyway, recording from today, but also lots of recordings and support material from all of our other TED sessions that we've delivered so far. So definitely worth checking that out. If there's one you've missed or one that you enjoyed but you can't quite remember something, you want to go back and have a look, all that detail is on there, and that's also where you will find details of our upcoming webinars as well. Our last webinar before Christmas is next Tuesday. It's a session on preparing for Brexit. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, and you think you'd like a little bit of advice on that score, then please do get your name down for that. Again, you can find that on the covid19.tourismni.com site. So just go and check it out and see what useful information you might find there. There's other support materials outside of the TED programs as well. So lots of really useful bits and pieces on there. And as I mentioned earlier, we are getting we do really depend on your feedback. So if you could fill in the feedback form that you'll receive after today's session, then that helps us to just keep on developing and improving the program and making sure that the topics are relevant to what you guys really want and need. And we're just doing our best at this. It is a difficult time. It's been a hard year for everybody, but we're looking ahead to 2021 now, and let's see what we can deliver to really help the industry recover. Just having a quick look there in case any other questions have snuck in, Michelle. But no, just people finding it really useful, really interesting and helpful. So hopefully everyone's going to whiz off today and start their e-commerce journey.
And I would say, Patricia, actually, one thing I would say is all of those platforms, Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, Facebook shops, Instagram shops, they are all really focused on supporting you as a user, and they have really good tutorials on there. So do avail of those, and don't feel that you'll be completely stuck in trying to do this yourself. There is lots of really good tutorials out there that are totally free. So it's not always about a big massive outlay of money either. Sometimes you might think, right, no, I just want to outsource it and get it built for me. But sometimes you might think, gosh, I'll have a wee go, and the only waste is going to be your time, which I know is precious as well. But there are loads of really good tutorials out there on all of those websites that'll take you step by step through those different options. And YouTube is also another really great place to be able to find some really good tutorials around setting those things up, or sometimes you just have a query. So do feel free to have a wee look around and dig around to see what information there is out there about those different platforms.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing. It's don't be too daunted. If it's something that you haven't stepped into before, there's help and support there. So don't be too daunted, and sure, have a wee go. Sure.
Yeah, we all have to start somewhere.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Michelle. Have a lovely Christmas if I don't see you, and all the very best. And thanks everyone that joined us here this morning. Thank you. Now, cheerio.
Bye. Thanks everyone. Speak to you all soon.